Well, in all the episodes of this podcast, this has never happened where I became the guest. Now, why did this happen? We'll talk about that in just a moment when we start the show, but this was a great experience. Jody was able to ask me a ton of questions about my marketing journey and how I came to be where I'm at today with Blue Cow Marketing, and it was exciting. It was fun, and hopefully you get some value out of listening to this episode. I will tell you, we're about 40 some minutes in length, but anyway, let's take a listen right now. And we're back. It's episode number 34. And today we are able to pivot. We actually had a great guest lined up who had to reschedule at the last minute, about 15 minutes before we were going to record. But you know what? We're going to stick to creating content. And I think in business, that's one of the things that you need to do is when you commit to doing a podcast or a blog or whatever, no matter what comes up, make sure that you have content coming out. And Jody had a great idea that she wants to actually interview me. So I'm going to be stepping away from the microphone as the primary host, and I'm going to be the guest of today's episode. So I'm handing it over to you.
As usual, my goal was to put you on the spot. So again, no idea what the questions are.
I've not seen any of them other than she has 3 pages.
I did.
She held them up
that
before
was just
we went
to scare you,
record.
Though. Yeah.
It's actually her letter to Santa, but.
All right. So I guess as we start all guest interviews with, you should give us a little bit of a background, where you started and what you do.
Absolutely. And you know what? That's probably a good point, because most people that have started to listen to this podcast from the get-go, I may have alluded to a little bit, but I've never actually given the full background to where I've started. So my actual training, my professional training is in broadcasting. So radio and television production. I specialized in TV production. And right out of school, I knew I wanted to run my own business. I actually had a business in high school as a DJ at the age of 17. So I was familiar with business. It was, business was in the family. My grandfather had his own TV repair shop. My mom had a craft store in the house. When my grandmother retired as a bakery manager, we converted that craft store into a cake shop. So it was something I was very familiar with, and it was very easy for me to be attracted to that kind of lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
So taking that training and then turning it into video production, and then obviously it evolved into marketing, doing a lot of marketing productions along the way. Over the years, and it's well over 20 years. I am feeling old, but it's evolved. There's been a lot of change from getting into learning photography to web design, and then doing aerial photography and aerial video. So there's always been evolution, and now more focus on the digital marketing, and I think that was something that was important to me, was being able to have a business that could flex and change. I love change. We talked just before we recorded how I was actually rearranging my office, and that was been something that I've always done. Right from a kid, is always needed to have change, and I don't think if I was in a business where I was doing the exact same thing for 20 years, like rinse and repeat, that I would have made it 20 years and still have been enjoying what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, that's something that, even just being here just over a month now, something I've, noticed and even mentioned to you is how this job is, better than anything I could have imagined, because I'm getting to dip my hands in every little thing, web design, there's graphic design, social media management, speaking with clients, like personal sales, there's everything. So I can definitely see where you're coming from in the idea that you would be the type of person who would be kind of bored easily if you didn't have all those different aspects to your business, for sure.
Absolutely. I mean, and the industry has changed, over 20 years, obviously. And, the way that people engage with businesses has changed. So, if you are a business and you're reluctant to change, you don't want to, you're probably not going to stick around too much longer, because the market is going to push you out because you're not willing to flex and grow and change with that.
As you mentioned, it's really important for you to be able to adapt and change your business. But say you were in the position where you were really interested in videography, but you had to make that change to marketing because you saw that that was what people needed. But what if you hadn't have made that um, change, or you were very reluctant to make that change because marketing wasn't in your interest? Kind of what advice would you give to those people who don't really want to make that change?
Absolutely, and I think there's two different types of changes. There's the horizontal change, where it was what I kind of done, where I've changed by the different types of services and things that I've done. So I've switched horizontally across that way. But there's also that vertical change where if let's use video for example. If I was dead set coming out of school that video was the only thing I wanted to do, the video industry has changed, right? I could still be in just doing video, but what I'm producing is different than what I was producing 20 years ago. So you can still stay in your silo or your niche or your area of expertise that you want to do. Um, you just become better at it and you learn what's new in that industry. You don't have to jump to a different kind of niche or genre, and go horizontally. You can stay vertically and really, narrow down that focus a bit more. And there are people that want to always stay ahead of the curve,
Mhm.
and that they're going to study what's happening, in the Southwest, down in Arizona, California, because those trends move across and come up here to, we're in the east coast of Canada, but you could be listening to this anywhere. But that's why South by Southwest from technology side, is a major conference of where technology and marketing and everything digital is, and where people look at, because that's what's trending
Mhm.
now. I mean, if you're a mechanic, maybe you're studying what's coming out in new vehicles down the road, because that's going to be important. We had a client who was in the vehicle detailing industry. He did all of his training in the US because they were on the top of what was new, and in the UK, those trends come over. So you can become very good at changing and evolving in that one area.
Mhm.
You don't have to change different areas. So that's what I would say is look at what you want to do. If you want to change and bring on a wider scope of work that you do, then obviously you can move horizontally and try to do other
Mhm.
things. But if you don't want to, then figure out how can you change with what's trending, or if you really want to be a go-getter, what can you develop that has never been
Mhm.
done, right? Can you do something that nobody has ever done, and make it part of that industry,
Right.
right? And be that trendsetter.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a perfect transition into the next question, talking about the trends and how most industries now are those types where they're so fast paced and ever changing just because of that technology aspect, but especially in the marketing industry. We often refer to ourselves as forever students because there's always new software, there's always new, think about even 20 years ago, was social media, as large of a factor as it is in today's, marketing efforts. So,
Mhm.
are there any tips you have for especially small business owners or entrepreneurs who, their primary focus might not be those marketing trends, but what if they are still the marketing manager for their own business? How are they going to stay up to date with that?
Well, I mean, the biggest thing that I see every day, and I fall victim to this too myself, is not allocating time to look for these things. The reality is this stuff is not going to be handed to you. It's not going to come knocking on your door and say, "Oh, here's the things you need to do next year to be on top of everything." What the time, if you don't put it aside to do it, the time you're going to hear about them is when they've passed you, right? And your competition has done that.
Mhm.
So I think the biggest tip has been, you know, allocate some time, whether it's monthly or weekly, maybe just a half an hour or whatever, and just go online and start to search and see what's happening. Look for people in your industry, in the US, in the UK, see what they're talking about. Find some blogs. There's obviously industry blogs, there's industry groups on LinkedIn. There's a ton of resources. I mean, you could get your entire masters in business just online without actually going to university, because all the information is there. You just have to go and search
Yeah.
for it, and take that time. The second part, which is equally as important, is the time you set aside for that. make sure that you're not distracted by other things. So it's not, when you're running between meetings, you're going to like, sit in the parking lot and look through your phone for that because you're thinking about what's coming up. You need to have that time to ingest it, and then digest it. So, you know, if you're going to start to research some things you want to do, or even is impacting your industry in the future, make sure you have some time after that to just, let it sink in. Um, and it will actually work. I mean, it will get you thinking. It's a routine. It's a muscle memory exercise, and it will be beneficial to you.
Hmm. Yeah, speaking on that time management piece, I remember in a lecture, I can't remember what course it was for, we were talking about the top 5 reasons small businesses fail. And I was so surprised because one of the major reasons was like time management and, managing, your family life, your personal life with your business life. And a lot of times entrepreneurs want to do everything themselves. Like it was kind of that concept, which was really surprising to me. You kind of don't think of it as something so simple for why your business would fail.
Hmm. And there's really, when you look at the tasks that you do every day, and this is an exercise that individual business owners should do. And if they have a team that has managers and so forth, they should actually get their team to look at doing this too. Is list out everything that you do, right? Like an entire week or even a month, every task you do, and then start to classify them as, does this task have a direct impact on revenue into the business?
Mm,
If it's yes, then mark it as an A or a 1 or whatever the case. The second thing is, does this task potentially impact revenue into the business? And thirdly, does this task have no impact on it? Is it just something that it has to be done, but if it wasn't done, it's not going to impact the business, but it has to be done anyway? Those number 3 tasks, delegate those, get somebody else to do that. The number 1 or the A tasks, yeah, absolutely. If you want to keep that business growing, you should put all your focus or most of your focus on those ones. And then the middle ones, you can start to say, okay, can I delegate that, or do I want to keep them?
mm,
um, and those are important because you'll start to look at, the ones that you're spending a lot of time doing are most likely the ones that aren't directly impacting revenue into the business, right? We can get distracted down a rabbit hole.
mhm,
For me, bookkeeping is never something I enjoy doing. It's something I have to do.
mm,
But me, going in and reconciling my accounts every quarter, you know, is not making me money. It's actually costing me money to do it because I could be doing other revenue generating tasks,
mhm,
like talking to clients, or doing actual billable work
mhm,
and so forth. So that is a task that outsourcing is extremely important to do,
mhm.
as well.
Right. So that's kind of the business side of things. Now, talking about
Mhm.
personal life, you obviously have a very, very sweet boy, Cameron. But as with any young boy, he's definitely a handful, right? So, what
Mhm.
advice would you give to those entrepreneurs who are really struggling with that kind of, balancing their work life and all of their career goals and aspirations with that family life and the kids aspect?
There's a lot of talk, and it's been like this for years, about you got to find this work life balance. And, in reality, you can't balance it. There's no real balance between the two. It's a work life integration, and need to like integrate that life into the business. And this is my opinion. I mean, if you're listening to this and you have a different one, you're open to that. And neither one of them are right or wrong, but this is the what I've experienced with it is, I've made the conscious decision to integrate my lifestyle of business into my life with Cameron. So, anything that he can see me doing that's business related, or, talking to them, and he's homeschooled now because of our lockdown. So, I made a decision to put a small desk in my office for his homeschooling, right? And we have a place to go to, and he calls it his office and his work. And I want him to really get a grasp of that work ethic and mentality, behind it. And he's slowly learning that. But to be honest, it is challenging. I mean, there are times where, the stress level goes up because you have a meeting coming up, and you're trying to clean up the office behind you that has just been blown up because he spent the last half hour tearing it apart, right? But in the current times we're in right now, people are a little more open to that being the norm.
Yeah.
You know, if you had done this back in 2018 and people are like, yeah, I'm going to Zoom chat you for a meeting and, you're in your living room, people are going to be like, how professional is this company? But the reality is that's what we're in now. And that level of what we expect, has come down for, what the appearance should be.
Mhm.
But if you like, the challenge of it, then that's, something that you'll definitely get out of it. But there are people out there that the 9 to 5 Monday to Friday is what they love. Running a business is not a 9 to 5 Monday through Friday job,
Mhm.
right? It is probably sometimes more than 24 hours.
Mhm.
It's hard to turn it off.
Mhm.
And the other side too is, you've got if you've got children, but it's also hard to, manage relationships too.
Mhm.
Your relationships with family members, relationships with spouses and partners, especially if they don't understand that lifestyle. If you are a real true entrepreneur to the heart, you can't turn that off. Like
Mhm.
you are always thinking about your business. That is what you are to the core. And you just need to embrace that, and let it just be part of who you are.
Mhm.
Right. And if you do that, don't be ashamed of it. It makes, make sure that you're always talking it out, and let everybody know that that's really who you are, and it's hard to change away from that.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I definitely like that concept, integration over balance. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because balance seems to be one or the other, right?
Yeah.
Like if you look at a scale, it's like, okay, I'm either on the left side or I'm on the right side. I'm either, it's family hat time or it's business hat time. And really, it's you're wearing both hats at all times. It's just a matter of managing it, in a way that it doesn't take away from the other one.
Mhm. It's kind of like how our last guest spoke about how you can't truly be yourself if you're putting on, a face for your PR efforts versus, on your social media. You kind of just
Hmm.
have to be yourself wherever you are, and that really is the key to not only, having a successful business, but also being happy, right?
Hmm. Yeah, because there are people that I'll go into a Zoom meeting with, on the business side, and Cameron will walk in the room, and they'll be like, "Oh, hey, Cameron," and they know him because they were friends on
Yeah,
Facebook and they see the stuff. So what they see professionally is exactly who I am
yeah,
personally. It's not, one or the other.
yeah. No, that's definitely important. Um, We were also talking about how difficult it can be as an entrepreneur, and you mentioned that still to this day, after even 20 years of trying to find this perfect integration over balance, you still have your challenges, and it can still be difficult at times. So I'm wondering if there was ever a time, even when you were very early on in your kind of entrepreneur journey, if there was a time you came close to kind of calling it quits, or if you kind of almost gave up on yourself.
Absolutely. This was about 3 years ago.
Oh, wow.
I was at the point where, I was going project to project, and, I was watching what was happening online. So following other entrepreneurs, in the US on social media, and, they're posting all this like, hey, we close all these deals and we're on these vacations and doing all this kind of stuff. And I fell victim to that, I'm judging 90% of my life on the 10% of their life that they're only showing online, right? And that's one of the biggest things you need to avoid is
Mhm.
what people are showing online. In most cases, when you're like, wow, they have this amazing life, you're only seeing that 10% that is like the positive stuff. And some of that is even fake,
Mhm.
right? It's been, in the marketing world, people rent, time in a jet to take their photos like, hey, I'm in my private jet. It's not theirs, it's a photo shoot. And
Yeah.
that's, something you fall apart with. But there was the stress of life and going month to month, and following those different, trying to find the next project. And if you do it alone, it's even harder because, if you sell services and you focus on trying to get new clients, then you have to fulfill on that. So when you're fulfilling, you're not selling. So you've got this constant ebb and flow, of work. So I was like, I had enough of this, and I did a final, post out online to a group that I was in, and saying, hey, does anyone want somebody or need somebody to help them with their software? It was with Infusionsoft at the time, and somebody I knew, said, hey, I'm actually looking for someone to to help us with this. And I went on full time with them as a contractor, obviously. So basically, my business of going project to project with multiple clients, I was down to one client. And I was doing that and did that for about 13 months. And it wasn't a fit for me. And it took that chance of having to experience it to realize that no, this is this is my true north.
Right.
You know, there are ways to do things better and more effectively. And since then, I've been able to get better balance with everything. You know, bringing you on board into the team was a decision that I was like, you know what, this is the time that I need to do this. There are elements of the business that I'm not as strong in. And, you know, you are much more stronger in, you know, the social side of things, you know, the strategy and more of the marketing automation and the system integrations. That's I love that. I can do that in my sleep
Mhm.
day in and day out. But sitting, you know, and coming up with social posts and things, it's not me.
Mhm.
um, and it's starting to actually start to gain its own legs and move in the business, and I'm starting to feel like it's finally a business. And you know, if you're listening to this, you probably had that feeling. You're like, I don't feel like I'm actually, like, it's a business, right? It just feels like I'm just struggling and just trying to do this, and I give the government taxes every month and all this kind of stuff, and you know, occasionally people pay me, but the reality is it doesn't feel like a business because you're in it, kind of feeling all the pains of it.
Mhm.
Um, so I know that was a long answer to it, but that's really the, you know, I guess I've been through it.
Right.
Yeah, that's the reality.
Yeah.
Is
So looking back at yourself 3 years ago, and if there's any kind of listeners or business owners who are at that point right now, what is the single best advice you can give them?
the single best advice I can give them for that scenario is something that I wish I would have done. And the reason that I wanted to jump ship was because I didn't have any kind of buffer to just step back and start to reevaluate and rebuild some things. You know, it was going, when you're going month to month, you know, and the revenue you bring in is paying all your bills and that kind of stuff. You don't have time to like take like a month off,
Mhm.
right? And just be like, I need to just decompress and figure out what I want to do. So start taking, you know, a portion of your revenue and just storing it away. You know, hear that, you know, put the money away for a rainy day and all that kind of stuff. You need to have that at least to cover your bills, you know, at minimum for a month. Ideally, it would be three, so that if you get to that point where you're starting to feel burnt out and you don't really know what your direction is, you have that to fall back on and be like, you know what, I'm going to pump the brakes. I'm going to stop, and I'm going to, like, you know, go away for a week or whatever and just focus on what do I really want to do in the business, and not have that stress that, oh, I can't make my mortgage payment next month,
Mhm.
right? Because you have that safety fund there to do it. And I think that's going to be something that would be extremely important for people.
Yeah, definitely. And, I know for sure you're saying a month off, and people who are used to or who are comparing it to, regular 9 to 5 hours are probably like, what the heck, like a month? But you can't compare them, right? Because if you're talking
No.
about an entrepreneurial lifestyle, you're not getting weekends, you're not getting nights off, right? So at the end of the day, a month off is nothing really for an entrepreneur who's been working basically, like you said, 24/7. Um,
Yeah, in 20 years, I've never taken 2 weeks off. I've never done a 2 week vacation. I've done 10 days. Um, but reality is, mentally, I was not fully off. I was always worried, is everything being taken care of? And it was only me. There was nobody here to manage incoming calls. And I was like, trying not to check email and all that kind of stuff. And, it takes a couple days to get in that routine of being away,
mhm,
to start to fully like get relaxed. But those first couple days are tough,
mhm,
especially if you've never done it
yeah.
before.
Yeah, and that actually, that's a topic that we're talking about discussing in later episodes or in a later blog, the whole creative process, right? And even the multiple studies that have been done in saying that stress equals basically total lack of creativity. You can't be in a creative mindset if you also have that added stress and pressure. So the return on your investment of taking a month off might be that you have a completely, brilliant, innovative idea for how to run your business or even just a new
Mhm.
perspective, right? So,
Yeah. Every year up until the last 2 years, because of the pandemic, every summer I would go around for the last, I guess, 7 years, and shoot videos in all 4 Atlantic provinces for one
mm,
client. And that would give me time. I think it was about 15 hours of driving, through New Brunswick, PEI, and then I'd fly to Newfoundland to do all that kind of stuff. A lot of time alone in a vehicle with just myself and my thoughts. That was amazing. That, like, the ideas of what I could do next in business, the ideas of, hey, this client should try this.
mhm,
That's when they came to me. It wasn't when I was hopping from meeting to meeting, or going on a lunch because I had to be back by 1 o'clock. You're too pressured, you're too rushed to even just have that sense of clarity. And I don't think your brain has the ability to get into that creative layer when you have
mhm.
top of mind things that you're trying to juggle as well.
Yeah. And people really don't like hearing that as the solution because it sounds so counterproductive, right? It's like what my mind is going to is when the hairdresser tells you if you want to grow your hair out, you got to cut it. I know you wouldn't know about that,
Mhm.
Shaun.
I know, I was waiting for that. I
Waiting
was
for the ball joke.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it sounds so counterproductive, but it
Mhm.
really is what you need to get that true benefit of, that creativity and innovation.
Yeah, and that's why when you hire a creative agency or a copywriter or a designer, and you look at it and be like, wow, that's like they're pricey. It's because they need the time to come up with those ideas. If somebody can say, okay, I can, design you a brochure for like $50, right? Basically, it's a template. Somebody else has come up with a design already. It's not going to be unique. They're just basically filling it in. But if you want like a true clarity of, I want something unique, I want something that's going to resonate, and I want, I'm not good writing, and I need a copywriter to write these emails or this landing page. Uh, the reason it is pricey is because they need to allocate the time to think,
Yeah.
to brainstorm, to come up with designs, reiterate those designs before you actually even see it.
Hmm. Yeah, and that's kind of the problem with where we're headed this day. Everything is, basically the same. Even the cookie cutter houses, like there's the templates, there's the technology to build it yourself. And so people are getting used to those prices that are, not realistic for somebody who actually wants genuine, handmade, time consuming content, right?
Hmm. Yep.
Yeah. All right. So another question I had was, um, have you faced any stereotypes or kind of misconceptions about the marketing industry throughout your career?
Um, I don't know if it was a stereotype, but it's more of a misunderstanding when people come to us, and over the years, and they judge what marketing is compared to what advertising is. So,
Mm,
when you say, what have you done to market your business? And they say, well, I run ads in the newspaper, or I'm on the radio. I'm like, well, that's advertising. That is a part of your
mhm,
marketing, but it's not marketing. It's like marketing is what what feeling do you want your clients to have when they work with you,
mhm,
right? I mean, just think of some of the major brands out there that have millions of dollars of research and teams behind it. When you look at, the difference between, a Hyundai and a BMW, right? You can immediately think like, if I had a BMW, how would it make me feel?
mhm,
Right? Versus, a four-cylinder Honda or Hyundai, accent or something like that, right? They each have their own market and their own demographic that they're trying to target. Um, but it comes down to that feeling, that you want them to have. And, just running an ad or having a newspaper, you know, advertising, executive, write something and publish it for you is not marketing,
mhm,
right? You're running an ad, that's in there. So that was been the biggest one. A lot of times too, and not so much now, but probably in the last 5 years, people that would start out with a business and they know, I need to get a website designed, and you build them a website and they put it online and they're like, well, I just search for, shoes for sale and my shoe store doesn't come up number one. Well, no, it's not going to, because you don't have the credibility yet.
mhm.
There's so much that has to be done to start to earn that place, right? You're not gonna. you're not going to start playing hockey today and play in the NHL tomorrow, right? It just doesn't happen. You
Mhm.
have to earn that spot, and you have
Yeah.
to really, prove your position there. And marketing is exactly the same way. Doesn't mean that you're going to have to spend millions of dollars if you are, a small business to get known. You just need to be consistent.
Mhm.
So, you can either spend a lot of money doing one thing, and just like pound that into people's brains, and that's how they know about you. Or you can spend, you know, less money, but do that one thing in multiple places. And then it's just the law of multiplication, that the more they see that same messaging, that same feel, it's going to resonate even more. So, your website, your social media, your voicemail, your email signature, the vehicle decals, how you present your business, how you talk about your business, it all needs to be together as one.
Mhm. Yeah, and kind of circling back to that whole concept of advertising versus marketing, I'll admit, when I was going into my marketing program for school, I had no idea how many intricacies there were in marketing. And, I think for people who aren't trained to see those intricacies and see how well or not well they're being executed, it's really hard for them to understand, because a lot of marketing is the subconscious. Like we released a post just, I think, this week about the psychology of colors in marketing, which,
Hmm.
somebody who wouldn't, wasn't trained to think of that, would never have any idea that a post or a brand chose a specific color to elicit a specific emotion, right? And
Hmm.
I think that's also why sometimes marketing can get the reputation of being manipulating consumers or manipulating clients into buying things, because we're
Hmm.
targeting that subconscious. So, what would you kind of say to that?
Well, I mean, what is the ultimate goal of a business is to sell a product or a service and make money, right? And understanding how people buy, how people react, how people feel when they see your brand, is extremely important. So it's not so much manipulation; it's more so understanding. The willingness to take the time to understand what that person needs. So if somebody had a flood in their basement, and you're a company that does disaster recovery, and you just go out there and say, "Yeah, we'll clean up your basement." That's your marketing message. Or, "We got you. We're here to comfort you in this time of need."
Mhm.
Right? That's what the people want. What's the emotion they're searching for at the time of that disaster? Is they want comfort. They want to know that their belongings are going to get recovered and saved, and they're going to get back to their home, in a timely manner.
Mhm.
You know, and ultimately, those companies that can resonate with that can charge more, because people are, as human beings, we're willing to pay a higher premium for what we actually want versus something that we not really sure we're going to get it. And then you're searching for the cheapest dollar that's there. There's that old adage that it's either fast, cheap, or good, and you can only have two of those. You can't have all three,
Mhm.
right? And that's true in anything that you're doing. But understanding that, what is that emotion? There are things that people, when they buy, there's purchases that are towards the purchases, and there are away purchases. A towards purchase is like a boat or a car or an ATV. And away is something like insurance, or like um, investments and stuff like that. You're putting money out, you don't really reap the benefits of it, but you have to do it. So you're kind of like, I don't want to buy it, but I have to. Whereas the towards ones are, this is something I can enjoy right now. It enhances my life.
Mhm.
You go clothes shopping, you get new pair of shoes or something like that. You want that. A lot of times you don't necessarily need it, but you want it. And those brands are really good at making you feel those endorphins, that whole serotonin boost and stuff that you're going to get when you see that and feel that. And a lot of times different mediums will allow you to do that. Video commercials on TV, you can see, you can hear, whereas print, you can't necessarily hear, the part of it, you just have to see it. So the different advertising methods are different that way.
Mhm.
But as for the manipulation thing, um, I think it's those people that are a little bit, have been through buyer's remorse because they're like, I bought something I didn't really need. It wasn't the advertiser's fault. It's just that you were very easily attracted to it, and you didn't really take the time to do it. So it's not the advertiser's fault
Mhm.
in that. Now, there are people out there that use these methods for, not so good,
Mhm.
when they sell subpar products promising more by doing it. But, that's in anything that's out there. But,
Right.
just understand what it is that you want to have come across. And one other example of that, in Halifax, there's a hotel in an area called Chocolate Lake. They have it's called the Chocolate Lake Best Western or something. I don't know what the exact name is, but the fact that it's in this area and chocolates in it, they used to have, and they may still do it, but they had a chocolate scent generator in their lobby. So when you came in, you smelt chocolate. There was a chocolate lab that was the like the hotel pet that would just roam around there, and they really did a great job of building the feeling of
Mhm.
family there. And you come in, and people love to go there for that, and they really grabbed a hold of that feeling and the idea of chocolate in there. I mean, who doesn't like the smell of chocolate? And if you don't like the smell of chocolate, I don't know what's wrong with you. But it's just something that I think was part of their brand that you would have never really thought of normally
Mhm.
until you saw it in action.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, with that being said, there are certainly examples of kind of misconduct in the whole marketing advertising world. We spent multiple units throughout my education on examples of, advertising disasters or marketing disasters. Mostly because I think it was really entertaining for the professors. But do you have any examples of kind of advertising or marketing mess ups in your head that have just kind of always stuck with you?
Not exactly anyone that I can remember from the exact time, but keeping in mind that if you've come up with something you think, hey, this is brilliant, don't really put it out right away. Start to look at how could this be perceived. We are unfortunately an extremely hypersensitive society now. When you look at the amount of children's books and things that are being retracted and pulled out of libraries and shows because of the connotations that are perceived now, because everyone has this huge sensitivity filter on. You got to look at how would that be perceived?
Mhm.
Is there any cultural things that perceive that saying or that phrase or that product being presented that way that would offend? Because a lot of times you could put something out and you could have this huge backlash on it because you didn't really consider that.
Mhm.
So that's one of the things that are there, but I don't have exact examples
Mhm.
to talk about for that.
Yeah, and that's kind of where that collaboration piece comes in too, because the more people that you get to bounce your ideas off of, the more, kind of filtering you get. Um, but the one example I will never forget because it came up in almost every single discussion about PR disasters or advertising disasters in pretty much every course was the Kendall Jenner and Pepsi commercial. Do you
Mhm.
remember that one?
Not off the top of my head, no.
So basically the whole concept was there was these protesters at these rallies, which obviously that's a sensitive topic. And so the whole kind of problem with it was that it basically suggested that Kendall Jenner walked up with a Pepsi can, offered it to the cops, and then everybody cheered. And so people just said it was really insensitive and, a lot of memes and backlash on the internet about, oh, who knew to, solve um, systematic racism, we just had to offer the cops a Pepsi from Kendall Jenner, that kind of idea
Mhm.
where there was the good intention, but the message was so, so, so far off.
Mhm. Yeah, and then there's also, strategic publicity stunts that are put out
Mm,
there to seem like a mistake, only to get that mass press
mhm,
attention that's there, right? And when that's done on purpose, it's been well thought out as to when this blows up and has a negative feel, how are we going to spin this, right? And that's when the PR side comes in,
mhm,
and don't you know don't mix up. marketing and PR. They are completely different things. And there are people that specialize in marketing and there's people that specialize in PR. Like if you listen to our last episode, the guest we had on is specialized in PR, not necessarily in marketing. So you're not going to get PR advice, good PR advice from a marketing firm.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. So, what are your personal thoughts on the whole concept of all publicity is good publicity?
Um, I mean, anytime you get publicity, if it's negative publicity, it can actually sink you if you're not prepared for it. Um, Most everything does blow over in time, and if you're willing to wait that out. But I mean, if you're going month to month, you're a small business, and you make a mistake that kind of you know upsets your community, it's going to be hard to get through that one,
Hmm.
because you are in a small community. But if you're selling products nationally, and one product has a negative issue with it, for example, there was a farm here in our local area where they had a lot of I think it was listeria or some kind of bacteria in it a couple years ago. And they were getting all these recalls, and people were like, "Oh, it's going to sink the brand." It didn't sink the brand. The brand's still going, and they're growing. They just waded through it. They fixed it. They admitted to it. And if it's a legitimate thing that you messed up and didn't know, just admit to it. Be like, "We're sorry. We apologize. We did not know. We will make sure it never happens again." Don't try to fight back and be like, "Well, no, this doesn't. This shouldn't offend you," because that's only going to fuel that
Yeah,
fire. Everybody's their own activists now, and it's very hard to really win that
yeah,
battle.
definitely, for sure. All right, and I have one last question to kind of wrap up this
Okay,
unique episode.
and thank you if anyone's made it all the way through 40 some minutes of the episode listening to me ramble.
I found it very interesting. I definitely some of these questions I didn't even have to look into. They were just things I wanted to know about you. So
Hey, if you're listening at this point, send me an email to hello@bluecowmarketing.ca and say, "I listened to this, send me a free book," and I will actually mail you out a free book. Do that right now.
you're that
Let's just see if
surprised,
anyone's actually listening.
that people are that interested in your life, hey?
That's right. It's not a book about me, don't worry.
All right. So I just want to know if there's, since the very beginning of your kind of entrepreneurial career, even in high school when you were being a DJ, is there one kind of business philosophy that you've kind of kept close to you throughout your whole career?
Yeah, it's you have to relate to the person you're doing business with. If you're only focused on the transaction, the business side, um, you're not going to keep those relationships, long term. I can look back at the clients that have been with me for 10 plus years, and I know them. Before we started working, they weren't friends, but I know them personally now. We're connected online. If I see them, they know about Cameron. They know things are going on, and it's a relationship. It's like a friendship,
Mhm.
and if you can show that you're human and you genuinely care about their success, their growth, not only just in their business, but them personally. If they're having a bad day and you can pick up on it, and you can just, relate to that, it's going to go a long way. Um, you know, you will start to see that come through, and you'll actually start to see getting referrals from people because they're like, what, this person is just, they've always been there for us, no matter what problems we had. And that's the best kind of relationship you can get and the best kind of referral versus, hey, what, they can go and do this, they can build you this website or they can, do these social media posts for you. But, if they take the time to actually get to know who I am, and what matters to me before they even started to do the work, people love that because we've gone through this era of going from personal relationships. And the story that I originally had, anytime I've done public speaking starts with about my grandfather and me being so small that I remember sitting on his workbench when he would repair TVs, and I would go on deliveries with him, and this is back before TVs were like disposable. People would actually invest and you get them repaired and they'd come
Mhm.
back, right? And we go and deliver them, and we would be like at the person's house for like 2 hours. And he'd be talking to them and sitting
Mhm.
down, and it's just like we were going to visit
Mhm.
friends. And that relationship has stuck through to me, that that was the key thing that was important. And even early on in business, I said if I ever got to the point where I scaled and I lost touch in being able to relate to my clients, I've either grown too fast or I missed a step somewhere.
Right on. I think that's excellent advice to any business owners listening as well.
Yeah, for sure. This was fun.
Yeah, it was. I learned a lot about you, Shaun.
You still want to work here?
Yes, definitely.
Okay, good. Good.
Mm,
But yeah, there's so much, there's so many pressure points that are impacting businesses these days, even more now than, 3 years ago.
mhm,
Um, but realize you're not the only one uh, out there, right? It's, I've seen this thing on Facebook this week about, that phrase of we're all in the same boat. Well, we're not all in the same boat. We're all floating in the same ocean. We all have different boats. Some are bigger, some are smaller, some have holes, some have, bigger holes than not. But the reality is we're all in the same kind of experience, so to speak, but we're dealing with it in different ways.
mhm.
And don't be afraid to ask for help when you need it. You know what? There are times, and I'll admit this. And if you're a client who has experienced this with me, you may not have known at the time. But there are times where I've had a meeting booked with someone, and I just wasn't feeling it. I wasn't feeling, not that I didn't want to talk to them, but I wasn't feeling I could give them the value. I was having a bad day or whatever, and I canceled the meeting and rescheduled it because I wanted to be able to be relatable to them. And I just, it was a stressful day and I just wasn't feeling it. So don't be afraid to do that kind of stuff if you need to.
Yeah.
Um, right. So,
Yeah, and I think that again is that really, really constructive advice that people are so hesitant to take because it feels counterproductive. But at the end of the day, would you rather have an initial client meeting on a day where you're stressed and overwhelmed and can't do your best, and then they have a negative view of you? Or would you rather
mhm,
postpone that meeting, have an excellent, initial kind of first impression where they go on and spread the word to many other people, like you got to look at the long term
mhm.
effects and benefits of the decisions you're making with your business.
Yeah, and that phrase of that you only get one chance to make that first impression, I think it's absolutely true.
Hmm.
Especially if somebody has not done business with you before, even if they've been referred by somebody they know who has done business with you, that's even probably the worst case, to be going into that, trying to make that first impression because you've been hyped up, right? You've been like, this person is amazing and do this, and you go in and you don't meet that
Yeah.
expectation. I mean, you don't know what that expectation is, because if I said to you, hey, this person is amazing, your thought of what amazing is different than what my thought of amazing is. So
Hmm.
it's a moving target. So you really have to be even more, impactful on that first impression,
Yeah.
right? And follow up is key. I mean, following up with people. We had a meeting with a client yesterday, and I sent her a text, a couple hours later, thanking her, and giving her an exact time. I'm like, by Monday, I will have your proposal to you. And she's like, this is amazing. Thank you. Nobody's ever said that. Right. So, that's, it's just that follow up and keeping that relationship going.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. So I'm assuming with no more questions, we're at the end of the
We
show.
are. Yes.
Excellent. So our guest that was originally scheduled for today is going to be, I think it's June 8th or something he has rebooked for. It'll be in June. He is an SEO, search engine optimization expert. We've been impressed with what we've seen online from him. We haven't talked to him yet, but SEO is extremely important. So stay tuned for an upcoming episode when we'll have him. I don't even remember his name off the top of my head. You probably do. Jeff
Jeff
somebody.
Peruka.
Baruka, yes. He's from San Diego and is originally from Hawaii. Yes, I'm looking forward to having Jeff on the show, and we'll bring that to you in an upcoming episode. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. Please leave a comment. If you want to reach us, you can email hello I don't need to spell that, but it's at bluecowmarketing.ca. Thanks for listening, everyone.